So, welcome to the graduation session for the Akashic Trancework Initiation Intensive. It's been really powerful 33 days, and we'll talk about some logistical things here in a moment. But first, I want to just welcome and thank all of you for the amazing, powerful work that you've done, for being willing to sink into yourselves and address your emotional cores and your beliefs and all of these things within to release and to open yourselves and to open yourselves to expansion, to experience, to everything in the universe is available for you to just thrive. And that's what this is about. It's about thriving. It's about growing. It's about really coming into the fullness of ourselves. And I really hope that you've all benefited. So I do realize that there's still some material to deliver, and that a lot of you are still working in release phases or even earlier. And that's completely fine. This, of course, was our first time delivering this material, so we've been trying to find the fastest way to deliver this material, but also we want to make sure that you're getting it. We want to make sure that it's available to you, that support is available during your process. So we will have all of the material available to you indefinitely. The group that you're in, the Cohort Alpha group, will be available to you indefinitely. We'll be in there providing chat support as much as we possibly can. We encourage you to support one another, and if you need to reach out to us, of course, we're available as much as we can be. And I do want to also offer you all the opportunity to be part of the next cohort as well. We'll have another set of 10 lectures. The material will be more developed this time. You'll be able to go back and redo some of your lessons. You'll be able to connect to the new cohort as mentors, which doesn't obligate you to do anything. It just means that you've been through this before. So if you feel like taking someone under your wing, you can do that. And it might be helpful for you to learn how to deliver this modality if this is something that you're interested in doing. Having these people who are also willing and eager to learn available for you might be helpful. So if you're interested in that, we are offering that to you for 111, which is what you paid for this previous course, and you'll still get the discounted trance sessions, discounted readings, and everything. And the people that are going in now are paying 222. So basically getting that for the same price, and we'll offer that to you for any future cohort. So if you don't want to take advantage of this now, if you wanted to get into another session in the future, which I'm not sure we'll do again this year because the holidays, depends on demand, but we'll extend that offer to you indefinitely. So if today is not the right day, because it starts tomorrow. So if you don't want to get on board with that, and of course we offer, split payments and things like that too. How many people do we have? We have 9 people, and also Heather has decided to join us under this mentorship program that we're offering, and George from this current class will be in there as well. And we may have some other people. We have some discussions we have to have with some of you about different ways you can help us too. So we do need help, and I think that we have some of you other wonderful initiates lined up to help us as well. I don't want to name any names because, it's not how I do. But yes, there are a lot of people already transitioning from this into that one because we want to make sure that we keep you engaged and that we do it in a way that you can afford. I know that sessions with me can be, pricey and all that. So, you'll get access to material. I may re-record some of the sessions that I did before. I'm kind of a perfectionist, so I might be like, my voice was weird that day, so I'm going to re-record it. So there's that. We're always finding more material. We're going to be incorporating more sound healing techniques into the practice. So it's a continually evolving process. So if you're interested in those opportunities, hang on, guys, let me close my internets. There we go. Sorry. Yeah, if you're interested in that opportunity, just go ahead and let me know. Yes, 111 Pia, we're asking for that. And you'll have that mentorship badge in the group, which will make you seem very official. So that's my pitch. But I would have loved to have you guys in there. I would love to have all of you in the group. I love your energies and I love your presence. So let us know if that's what you want to do. So that's all I have to say about those businessy logistic things, unless anyone has any questions about either the extended support or the mentorship process or anything like that. So, again, if anybody has any questions, just jump in. So today's session is supposed to be an open forum. And I know that a lot of you have been working on catching up with these processes, but I really wanted to allow some space for any of you to express anything that you want to express. You know, I can go on and on about anything, and I'm happy to take you guys into a trance session if you want to, and we could do that for maybe a half hour, 45 minutes. But I really want to make this whatever you guys want it to be. So is there anything that anyone here would like to express, anything they'd like to talk about? If you want to come on and just use your voice to express your experiences, to describe what you've learned, any feedback, even just anything that you're thinking about right now, if you just want to share it, even if it's not related to the class, we can do some things. I'm happy to do a live session with any of you to help you dig into some of your processes, over the air here. So if you're open to that level of vulnerability, I'm happy to do that too. I'm here for you. This is all of your moments, moments to connect, to ask anything, to do anything you want to do. Yeah, Mike, please go on the mic, Pia. Yeah, thanks, Joe. Appreciate that. I think
Okay,
you need.
hi.
Hi, Pia.
Yeah, I was sharing in the group a week ago or something that I was struggling with the material that came up from the trances. I don't know if everybody saw that. But yeah, I just want to jump in and say that I really feel the past 2 days or something, I really feel that it's like coming to a peace in me, that I was feeling that so overwhelmed because I had this immense feeling that this is so many lives that I had these patterns, and it's connected to my spirituality and the way that I'm spiritual. So that I couldn't see through it in a way. How could I ever overcome so many lives of so many patterns deeply ingrained in me? Um, yeah, and it's very much connected to give too much, or yeah, to sacrifice my personal life actually for the spiritual life, for being a healer or for being a nun or a monk or whatever, a witch. um, so yeah, I don't know where I'm going from this, but I feel that I'm a more settled place with it now, that I'm actually um, capable of uh, keeping that balance now that I wasn't before. Yeah. Can anybody hear what I'm saying?
I did hear you. Yes,
Okay.
thank you, Pia. And I just wanted to touch on what you brought up about past lives. And, I don't focus a whole lot on past lives in this modality. Even though this is kind of how we got started, more often than not, I allow people to go where they need to go, because I found that, yeah, there are a lot of past life stories to unravel, a lot of experiences that
But
we've.
I mean, yeah, I understand that, but really, it's not really the importance if it was in a past life that it happened to me. It might as well has happened when I was working with my subconscious mind or the cellular mind, whatever. I mean, it can happen anywhere that you go into some kind of wormhole that just pulls you down, and it's layer upon layer upon
Yes,
so yeah, I mean, it's just like one of those stories that I think it's pretty common, or I think it should be. I mean, when you go deep, that's where you go, isn't it? So
exactly.
yeah, I yeah, but yeah, I mean, I don't think you go in particular. I don't see the course as going deep into any kind of the modalities, like really deep. But you can do that on your own by using the trances. That's what I do. with it. Just doing my own research. But I really appreciate that modality, that how it's shaped. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Sorry for interrupting.
No, you're not interrupting. This is your time to speak. I'm just kind of affirming what you're saying.
Yeah. Yeah. True. True that.
Mm.
Yeah. No,
So
but I'm fine now.
good, good. I'm so glad. So I just wanted to express gratitude for what you shared, and it is so important. And you really do grasp the point of this class, Pia, which is to deepen you into your own modalities. This is kind of a larger framework, a larger system, these tools you can use to explore yourself. And that's really what our goal of this course was, because everybody out there has, a belief system that they're teaching, and we obviously are imparting beliefs. Everything is a belief in its own way, but the fact that you were able to use it as kind of a launching pad to explore your past lives and explore your spirituality, yes, it's so wonderful. So much gratitude for that, Pia. So Megan's joined us. Welcome, Megan. I'm glad that you had some time to join us today.
Hi, yeah, thank you. Can you guys hear me?
I can, yes.
Okay, there's going to be some background noise. So thanks for having me. And no, I just wanted to kind of join in and say thanks for having this class, and that it has, through the course of this class, it's been, how many weeks has it been now? It's been, it seems like it's
Almost
been,
5.
yeah, so there's been a lot of changes in my life, ups and downs. Right now I'm kind of at we talked about in my session the other day, just kind of like this very strange transition moment, related to unexpected and unforeseen forces. But that's what life is, so having um, these kind of tools, that I feel like I've been able to gather more and strengthen more and sharpen more in this class has been, really helpful in dealing with this. Like yesterday, I felt like a hurricane was going through my body. That's the only way I could really describe it. It was just, I was very emotional, related to certain things that, I have no control over. It's just the only thing that I can do is make my decision about how I'm going to move forward. And so just being with myself yesterday and watching my tendency to kind of seek comfort in the familiar, which is to go very dark, and just watching it happen and trying to, just be like, no, this is not reality. This is not how I have to respond to things, and just kind of like visualizing things differently. It maybe, didn't help me at the moment that I was going through my storm, but it helped me, shortly after, to really reflect on, okay, well, this is what happens to me when I get in these moments of like extreme stress, and I internalize everything and I put it on myself, even though it has nothing to do with me. It's like, it's more comforting for me, and for some reason, to put myself down in those moments than to do anything else. And I don't know, it's some kind of defense mechanism, maybe, where it's just like, if I put myself down, then nobody can put me further down than myself. So it's not, it gives me some form of control, but just, and it's not healthy and it's not good, but I don't think I'm definitely not the only person that does that, so I guess just like kind of, visualizing it happening, and, trying regularly to, when that kind of thing happens, just to be aware of it, and this is the kind of thing where it's like mindful meditation tries to tell you these things, but, I haven't gone as deep in mindful meditation as I have in trance work. it's just, mindful meditation is very cool and everything, but it just doesn't touch on like these, sorry, there's a T-Rex in the background. It just doesn't touch on these like, on these powerful abilities that we have within ourselves. Like it doesn't go as deep for some reason. And maybe that's because of the kinds of teachers. I think that it's, maybe it's saturated, you know, like there's a lot of places that, well, a lot of ways to do meditation. And I have a meditation app and everybody, you know, it's all just like this kind of love and light kind of stuff, which is cool. But at the same time, it doesn't really reflect the range of human emotions that we have, you know, and just like telling somebody love and light, you know, it's just like, cool. Well, yeah, I'd like to feel that way. And sometimes I do, but it's not, when I don't feel like that, it's okay that I don't feel like that. And there's a reason that I don't feel like that. So going in and like really being like, okay, this is why I'm not feeling like this. And whether it has something to do with childhood, of course, it, you know, or whatever kind of trauma, like it doesn't really matter at this point. What matters is how I move forward and how I relate to it now at this point in my life, you know. And I've actually, during this class, I wasn't expecting this, but I've kind of developed a deeper relationship and appreciation for my parents, you know, like I've kind of let go of some anger and disappointment that I had toward them, because I mean, you know, not only am I now experiencing, you know, kind of like what it's like to be a parent, but also it's like, you know, people are just people, you know, we do what we can. So yeah. So I guess that's, you know, the main things that I want to share, at least today.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I want to touch on some of these things that you shared because they're really important. The one thing that stood out to me most is the clearing of those ancestral connections. That's a really powerful and important part of this entire modality. And, you know, we talk about belief and not belief and all these things, but we inherit so much from our ancestors, from our parents, from our grandparents, and we carry this on, and it is carried through us into our descendants. And as we begin to clear, we become so aware of the humanness of our ancestors, of our descendants, of all of these beings around us that are, like you said, just people, just doing the best they can. It really allows us to tap in to our heart-centered awareness, to our deep compassion. It's really powerful. It just makes me feel really happy to know that that's the kind of alchemy that we're encouraging in this course. And the other thing I wanted to address that you talked about is mindfulness. And mindfulness is very important. Mindfulness is really what this class is about. Mindfulness and equanimity. Do I say that right? Equanimity. I'm sure. Equanimity. So the point of equanimity is to address all of the things within us fairly, without judgment. Everything is just experience, right? And the thing about mindfulness as it's presented in the West is it's kind of been taken out of its context. It's been removed from the belief contexts that it belonged in. Like, we only have a very small understanding of what these mind practices do in their proper context. Like, if you look at the Tibetan Buddhists, they have a very extremely developed religious tantric experience there. They're very powerful, not because they reject beliefs, but because they incorporate beliefs into their process of mindfulness and equanimity. They're engaging their beliefs. So in a lot of ways, we're taking those practices of mindfulness and really applying them towards our own minds. And I think that what happens a lot of times when we go into meditation classes, they're just sit and try to clear your mind. You know, it's like the idea of thought as being something we have to reject or push away or just watch or observe. But what do we do with those thoughts as we're observing them? Our minds are very engaged. We're very active beings. We're more active mentally in this point in history than we probably ever have. And we have so much input. We have so much information coming in, so much overwhelming stimulation all the time. So does anyone else want to share anything about their experience? Are there any requests? Does anyone want to do some association exercises live? Those can be fun. You could do them with me if you wanted to. You can look into my subconscious processes. That could be interesting. Or I can take you guys on a fun trance journey. If there's any requests, this is your time. It's interesting how our parenting abilities are imprinted on us because, we learn how to parent from our roles, from our role models. And the more good parents that we've had in our lives, or even just loving parents, a good parent is a loving parent. It's not about like, am I perfect? It's about, am I really a loving, nurturing person, even though I might make mistakes? And the more of that we have in our ancestry, the more of those kind grandmothers that we can tap into and bring through, the more we'll be able to bring that love energy to any children we come into contact with. It's really powerful. Okay. So I want to just talk really briefly about one of the last lessons that we put out. And this is where it gets weird. I had some reservations about bringing these concepts into the course, even though I think they're important and they're powerful, which Astara has since banished in my mind. But the last lesson for this course involves star family. And it's really interesting how many common elements people run into when they start working extensively in astral spaces. When we start opening ourselves to receiving different guides, different energies, different levels of awareness, different dimensions, different worlds, when we start accessing deeper levels of Akashic knowledge, it can be really interesting where we end up going and what we end up encountering. And we don't always, in fact, we don't usually choose to go to a certain place, though of course we can. Most often what comes to us is what comes to us. And it's amazing how many people report what seem like extraterrestrial experiences when they're in trance states. In fact, I would say that most people that experience those types of things, extraterrestrial encounters, they're experiencing it astrally or they're experiencing it as channeling. And there's a lot of dogma, a lot of confusion, a lot of stories around these different alien energies. We can call them Arcturians, Pleiadians, Syrians, a lot of names, a lot of labels, a lot of different thoughts around these things. There's theories about alien ancestors, the Anunnaki, the Namo. There's so much information out there. There's so much evidence out there. And for as many people believe it, there's a million people that don't because they have their own reasons. A lot of it is political. There's a lot of political information, a lot of political context that shapes the world into a specific view. So I'm not one to encourage believing in anything, but if you want to find a way to really interface with some deep level knowledge, with some dense, powerful, spiritual, intense Akashic wisdom, star seeds have a portal. Star seeds are a portal. Within each of us has a starseed portal, whatever you want to call it. That's just a name that I just came up with just now. We have something within us that can tap us into this higher awareness. Now, whether they're literally on another planet, whether they're literally in another dimension, we don't worry too much about that. I think that it's really, really important to allow ourselves to receive whatever comes. And if we can attune ourselves to specific frequencies, if we can connect ourselves two specific frequencies, we can receive extremely powerful, dense information. It's very activating to the third eye, to the crown. It really, really activates everything. And yes, they are part of that higher self-awareness, because the higher self, I believe, is how we connect to them and to all of our higher beings. It's not horribly different from connecting with what we would call a ghost or what we would call a spirit or a god, but there is a sort of specific vibration. And the interesting thing, the really interesting thing, and this is why we include this in this course, is it's very common. And there are a lot of people out there that are having very similar experiences without having any prior knowledge of these things. The prime example that I can think of is the Namo. If you know anything about the Dogon people of West Africa in Mali, which you may or may not, and we actually, the lesson that we just put out has some information about them, some good resources. These are people that are descended from the ancient Egyptians. These are people who have preserved astrological knowledge for the past 5,000 years that shows very detailed information about the star Sirius and its satellite star, and a star, you can correct me if I'm wrong here, you know more about this than I do, Sirius B. This star is not visible from Earth. They have knowledge that we can date back at least 400 years, a specific diagram of this, and they claim to have received this astrological information, astronomical information, I should say, from the people of Sirius, and they call the Namo, who are amphibious beings, who we might conceptualize as being mermaids, but these are amphibious water beings from another planet. This is not something that Western science wants to hear. Western science does not want to hear that there's this ancient astronomical knowledge that our science only discovered in 1970 with the invention of a powerful telescope. Not only did the Dogon have records of Sirius B, they had information about the outer planets of our solar system, which of course were not discovered until the 20th century either. So it's really interesting that this information is out there, and there are tons of other very specific documents. If you know anything about the Sumerians and the Anunnaki, they have very detailed information about beings that came and showed them all this technology, and they lived a very long time. And of course, in India, there's records of spacecraft and different ages and different beings that have come. There's so much information out there that we automatically discount because, well, I don't know about us particularly, but as Westerners, we automatically discount because it's just not within our paradigm. It's not within our scientific understanding of what the world is, which of course is a story. It's a narrative that we've been fed. So that's kind of an overview of how common these experiences are throughout history, documented experiences with beings with specific traits, specific characteristics. And whether or not they were encountered in physical space or astral space or what their forms or structures are, you know, that's not for me to say. But there's a lot of information in history, and I could name 5 more examples if you know anything about the Book of Enoch and the Watchers. I mean, there's, if you want more information, just message a star or myself. There's so much more. Read the last lesson, lesson 24, has a bunch of great links in there. And if you don't want to do any of this stuff, don't do it. But it's really interesting what comes. And I'll tell you about my personal experience and what was one of the first catalysts for this course. And then I'll tell you a little bit about Astara's experience in my words, unless she doesn't want me to. So I've been a channeler for a long time. I can channel through different things. I can channel through different energies, different archetypes, whatever you want to call them. It's not something I've always liked to do, but it's something that happened to me. This happens to me for whatever reason. So I was working, I was doing some spiritual work, and I'm trying to think of a good way to even put this. This is so powerful and unusual, I began to receive Arcturian information. I began to channel through information about what is called the grid. And I had heard this term grid before, but I didn't really understand what it meant. Like, I had this vague idea of like there being this energetic connection between all beings. But I didn't really conceptualize what it was until I began to receive these overwhelming third eye messages, these psychic signals telling me about my role and my partner's role, our twin dynamic within this grid, which was to transmute lower energies to a higher vibration. And this came to me very visually, like it didn't come clearly, it came very densely, it came through a lot of disjointed words and concepts and ideas and images, but I had a very, very clear sense of these being Arcturian energies, which is not something that I'd ever really connected with. And I had read about things like Pleiadians and Arcturians and all those things, and I was skeptical and I was looking at it symbolically and, well, it's just a story about unconditional love, which is great, but when I experienced it, I experienced the rawness of that information. And that was one of the first things that put me personally on this path towards deeper and greater understanding, was that Arcturian connection. And there may be some of you, if we ever do private sessions, where these light beings come in while we're working together, and there's something we can do with these Arcturian guides that provides us with deep healing and also accessing deep information. So hopefully what you're seeing now is that these energies, these Arcturian, Pleiadian, Sirian, whatever beings, are guides, just like any other guide that we would work with. And in the same way that some of these guides that we work with, these animals, these spirits, these deities, whatever they might be, as much as the belief around them creates their strength, how many people believe in something, it makes it a more powerful thing in the astral universe. This is my thing. I don't know if I'm doing that. But it's really important to understand the strength and the common experience behind these star being encounters. A star's experience was also very powerful. She is very astrally active, very third eye active, and she was visited by her Namo, which you've heard about by now, just out of the blue pretty much, astrally. And she's always been a very skeptical person. I mean, when I first met her, she was very much, how can I put this? Very much not open to believing in these types of things. I could have never convinced her that there were any such things as aliens in any way. Rational spiritualist, yes, skeptical. And over time, I've seen her shift because she's learned to trust her own inner sight, her own inner vision, her own inner truth, and then going out and validating the things that she was experiencing. And that's what really floored me, because when she started receiving this stuff, I was kind of along the same lines. I'm like, well, this is symbolic information. It's relevant to you. This is great. This is helping you to kind of unravel your own subconscious processes, to do these things. It's therapeutic. But when you start looking up things that you're receiving that you didn't know about before, that's when your mind is blown, because how is that possible? Maybe you heard it somewhere, maybe, yes, crazy complex scientific information, detailed information in symbolic forms that are difficult to interpret. This information is very dense. It can take some time to unpack. But when you read something that validates a vision, it gives you the words for what you've seen in your mind, then there's something happening there. And that's why we value these star family connections so much. And there are potentially other ways you could access this information. This is a portal, this is an interface. And as trance workers, we understand the power of belief. We understand how important it is to really engage our experiences without judgment. And this all comes back down to that equanimity. So if I receive a message from God, from Jesus, from the Buddha, I don't know if everyone gets stuff from the Buddha. It just kind of says that. Is that any different from receiving a message from a Namo or from an Arcturian? You might even say, and this is kind of an aside, that it's more easy to scientifically explain an extraterrestrial who's sending you some kind of projection than in a being who lives off in some other dimension. But it's really about what you choose to believe, ultimately. And I will say that over and over again. I often stress that belief is a tool. Belief is a tool. It's there to help you access those portals. If you receive something, if the information that you receive is helpful to you, if it's validated by other people, by outside sources, why would you not believe it? Why would you distrust it? And even if it's not validated by outside sources, if it feels right, if it's a loving, compassionate, helpful message, engage your belief tool, engage your belief system, incorporate that into your belief system. Whether or not it's right or wrong, who's to say? You can spend a million years debating rightness and wrongness. Belief is the most powerful tool that you have. And when you align that energy, that defining energy that is belief, and when we call it belief, we're not really giving it its full power. What we're talking about is the power of manifestation, the power of aligning yourself with reality as it intersects with other people, as it connects with other people. Intersectionality, intersubjectivity. It's a term that is used in some other circles, so I'm kind of smiling about that. But our intersubjective experiences are very important. The things that we connect with, that we all understand, allow us to speak the same language. Even me using a word like language is a point of intersubjectivity, of intersectionality. We're connecting every single word that we use. The more dense and complex these symbols and this energy, the more powerful our intersectionality and our connection. So that was kind of a long rambling point, but I'd be interested to hear if anyone has anything they want to share, if they've had any kind of alien experiences or extraterrestrial experiences or starseed experiences. Has anyone ever had anything like that before? Because I'm very curious. Yeah, Megan, I saw what you were saying about seeing objects in the sky down there recently, even, and I've seen my fair share of strange objects. It's interesting how denied it all is.
Yeah. Let me just come in for a second. It's funny because the people that I have told about this experience in Mexico, which I saw these things in Mexico, they don't deny them at all. And this is a very religious country. It's a very Catholic country, but it's interesting because nobody looks at me like I'm crazy. They're like, oh yeah, we've seen those. But they don't know. They don't claim to say that they know what it is, but they don't look at me like I'm a whack job or anything.
That's interesting. Yeah, I think in America we've been very conditioned to, kind of look sideways at people like that because there's some agenda there. There's some very specific agenda, I feel like, that wants us to ignore all the evidence. It's really interesting to me how prevalent that is. Even trying to find resources for this lesson that we just wrote, we saw a very compelling documentary about the Dogon last year, and it was very powerful. Actually, no, it was earlier this year. and it was very powerful, and now we can't find it. And the sources that we've been finding are less and less linked to the primary sources. So it's interesting how that kind of goes. But yes, Joe, I'd love to hear about your experience as well, for sure. That's an interesting one, Joe. I actually had a memory of being incarnated as an alien type being in Egypt at one point. So those Egyptian connections are really interesting. I should mention, and I didn't even go into this, that when people go into regressions, past life or ancestral regressions, it's not uncommon to have memories, detailed memories, as beings on or from other worlds. It's remarkably common. I've had it, a star has had it. I've had several clients that have had the experience, completely unexpected, even people that weren't really into that kind of thing, which can be very disconcerting. Yeah, I've had at least three. I had a interesting alien experience during a ancestral regression. Trying to scroll up here a little bit. Chanel, did you have an experience you wanted to share? Oh, okay. What do they look like, Chanel?
Guess I can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, okay, one night I went to go to sleep, and I don't know if anyone's ever felt like you can kind of feel in the air that something's coming. I had that sense. So I already knew that something was like gonna come visit. So I went to go lie down, and then I heard like a knocking sound in my mind, like on a door, and I said, "Okay, come in." And then I saw this little I drew a picture, but the first one it seemed like a child almost, kind of like, and it was like young looking, but it had large black eyes and a giant head, and then a very like thin small body, and it tried to speak, but I think it was speaking English, but the way it sounded was it was kind of warped. I couldn't understand what it was saying, like the way the vibrations of its voice or something, it was coming in weird, so I couldn't understand it. And then the next day and the night, something else that looked exactly like the little one, but it was older, like it looked like a very old, like, I don't know. It didn't say anything to me though. It just kind of stared and didn't like communicate at all. But that was it.
Thank you. Yeah, that's really interesting how those traits tend to line up, those eyes and the body shapes. And I mean, you could say it's kind of programmed from what we've been conditioned to believe those things to look like. But I feel like even people that haven't ever seen those kind of things from like different cultures from all over the world, they see those same types of images, those same types of figures. And yeah, I would like to know, like, was it a powerful positive feeling, or was it kind of ambiguous? Like, how would you characterize that?
Okay, the younger one that first visited me, it kind of felt like it was just curious, and it didn't really have, its face was, expression was like, it wasn't like anything really. I think it was just curious, I think. And then the next night, the older one, I kind of got it wasn't like I don't know what kind of feel, it wasn't like threatening, but it wasn't like nice either. It was just kind of like, I don't know how to explain it. It wasn't like scary, but it wasn't, you know, it wasn't nice either. It was just kind of like, I don't know, like it
Kind
was
of
just
gray. It's interesting. I'm thinking of the grays when you describe that. You know, we talk a lot about the grays, and I feel like when we're talking about them, it's like they are kind of somewhere in between. So it's almost like they aren't necessarily colored gray, but they kind of have a grayness to their energies, right? They're kind of just like there. And that's why people are like, are the grays bad? Are they good? It's like each one is just kind of there in the middle. So I kind of have this conceptualization of the grays as being more spiritually or more astrally advanced than us in some ways, but not really at that fifth dimensional level. They're kind of like in this fourth dimensional sort of mind space, but they don't have like that sort of fifth dimensional love consciousness. So they kind of are in a lot of ways just like us, most of us emotionally or spiritually. They're just kind of like each one has their own kind of agenda, each one has their own kind of self-concern that's similar to another person. So when it comes to those beings, I feel like it's a case-by-case basis. And those are the times, honestly, when we may need to employ some of our astral boundaries. Because, you know, some of these beings may or may not have our best interests at heart. You know, it's always important just to check in and to decide if we even want those beings there. But it's really powerful to have that experience, to see how visceral and how common these things are. So, yeah, it's like they're in that next dimension, you know, they're like kind of just a level away. They're at that full on fourth dimensional mental astral space. It's really interesting, the similarities between those gray experiences. I think that hmm, when we start working with some of these light beings, some of the ones that are just light, we find that the grays come less, but there may be reasons for those connections with the grays. I've heard of people talking about grays that they liked very much, you know, so it's really about discernment ultimately, like any energy that you want to connect with. It's about discernment. You know, a lot of people experience a lot of fear around these beings, and I know that you guys aren't there, but it's just really interesting. Yeah, the energy. Was it like balancing? Yeah, I'm just wondering. Hmm. So they're there for a reason. It's really interesting when we start to connect with these beings and we start becoming aware of the energy grid. It's almost like everyone has their role there. So maybe these grays are kind of like technicians. You know, we've talked about DMT a little bit in this course, and a lot of people, when they run into DMT, they connect with like these machine alien elf beings. You know, I think that there is some connection there. There's these energies that are there to kind of balance and stabilize out the grid, stabilize out our energy patterns. So that's really interesting. Hmm. the light codes. That's some really interesting stuff there. I think I sent a couple of you some of the light language that I channeled the other day, which is really weird. But how they transmit information to us in different ways, because language is not always the best way to transmit information, right? So when it comes to us in these kind of symbolic ways, it's really powerful, because over time we'll begin to unpack it, and it activates us. It activates us in different levels. Yeah, I'm curious if anyone else gets information about the grid, or if that's just something that specific people get when they're working with specific energies, because there's so many different ways to conceptualize these things. But the sensitivity to the vibration, really being sensitive to that, I think that's really important. Knowing what energies you're dealing with, knowing what they're doing, the more you can do that, the more that you can benefit from these connections. We want these to be beneficial connections, right? Discernment. Yeah, discernment. Boundaries. So when we talk about the grid, we haven't discussed this in our lessons, and we don't have any that do, because it's a very kind of vague concept, to be honest. But oftentimes you'll hear people talking about the Christ consciousness grid or the ascension grid, which, when you start studying things like sacred geometry, is visualized as a specific overlay, kind of like the flower of life on the earth. And it can be visualized in different ways, but the idea is that we're all connected in specific energy patterns, and we all kind of have a purpose as nodes on this larger grid. And this is sort of like how we all connect astrally at this fourth dimensional, fifth dimensional level. Network of light. I like that. Yeah. I mean, you can conceptualize it any way you want to, and seeing it visually, if you allow yourself to see it in your astral space. And I very seldom, in fact, I never bring anyone there, but if they start seeing it on their own, then it's really powerful. And I believe that there's a connection between the types of beings who visited Chanel, and the light beings that Pia's connected with, and all the other visions that all of us have had. I think that it's really, really powerful to understand that all of these beings have a place in this sort of great system, this great network, in the same way that an animal does, or the same way that we do. And understanding our fuller roles, because we have these physical roles here in the grid, but we also have a spiritual role in the grid, collective connection. Yeah, so this gets when we start talking about how these conceptualizations work, it's important to understand them only insofar as they're helpful for us. I never really thought about the grid until I received that Arcturian transmission, even though I'd heard about it a lot, because it didn't have any meaning to me. But if we understand how our astral spaces work, if we start to think of ourselves as light beings, as connecting with different energies, then it's just so powerful. And it's like what you're saying there. Yeah, our vibration is raising. We're all raising our vibration together. So when I start vibrating at a love frequency, despite all of my lower stuff that's trying to pull me down, everyone else around me does the same thing, because it's just how our resonance field works. I'm going to have a lesson available soon about the real power of heart-centered awareness. And that's what all of this comes down to. Any beings that we connect with, we want to approach from that level of heart-centered awareness. And we want to connect with beings that are at that level. And we want to raise other beings. Sometimes we run into beings that need our help. You know, it may be that, you know, they're guides for us, but what happens when an energetic being, a gray or a ghost or something runs into you and they need your help? We run into this with our ancestors sometimes. It's not just helping one another. It's not just helping ourselves. It's helping all beings, all sentient beings, as the Bodhisattva vow goes. You know, sentient beings are innumerable. I vow to save them. You know, that's really what we run into when we start vibrating at that compassion level, at that heart-centered level. So that light that we are is really that unconditional love. And that's why they call it the Christ consciousness grid, because Christ consciousness is love consciousness. It's heart-centered awareness, true heart-centered awareness. So the more that we vibrate there, the more that we resonate with those light beings, and the more that we can receive any beings who come to us compassionately and safely. It's ultimately how we raise everyone's vibration. It's kind of like a net almost. Like if I pull up on one node in a net, all the other nodes around it come up too. But one tear in the net damages the integrity of the entire thing. So you can read a lot about this stuff, and we can help you find resources if you're interested. Again, we don't teach about this in the class because it is something that I think that people either come to on their own or they don't because they have a different framework, but it's all the same. It's just our connection. It's how we're all connected. So if we visualize that, like anything else we do in astral space, it just strengthens that connection. So instead of just seeing myself, I'm seeing how I affect all of you within that space. So I'd be happy to work with that a little bit in a trance today or anything at all that you guys are interested in. But I want to keep talking too because this is really fun. Bird people are powerful too. I feel like there is a connection, at least in my experience, with the avian awareness and the heart center. People often experience bird consciousness, bird guides, bird beings when they start to move more and more into their heart-centered awareness. Just I'd love to hear more about that. Is there a color associated? I'd be really curious about that too. Yeah, birds are really that kind of avian development of the reptile mind, very uplifting. I feel that they do kind of guide us to our heart space. Yes, perfect, beautiful, you know, elevating, lifting, bringing up. Astara has this one channel that she did where she talks about us being avian beings, about being beings who are rising. You know, all of these beings, all these birds are very connected to us. I have an entire vision that I wrote up from last year after a sweat lodge, where I really saw how we had evolved alongside birds, about how birds really kind of are our brothers and sisters in a way. Yeah, I remember you talking about that, Megan. It's really important to connect with our support. So our star family and our earth family, they're all connected. You know, there's no real difference ultimately. You know, it doesn't really matter if someone is a bird or an alien or a person or a rock. We're all one, we're all connected. We're all in a grid. We're all beings who are there to receive one another, connect with one another. But Pia, I'm curious, is there a color associated with that star being, with that bird woman that you spoke of? I think that, Megan, the symbolic importance of each of these birds kind of helps us to understand what those beings are communicating, because they're communicating to you using that symbolic language. So it's kind of like that's the word they're using. So that being may not really be a bird, but they're using the shape of that bird to communicate something to you. So seeing those deeper symbols helps you to just hear that message that much more effectively. Very grounding colors, Pia, very powerful. I'm feeling that being in a certain way as bringing you directly into that green heart center, very enlivening, very powerful. Those earth colors and gold. Gold's a very healing color. They say when you see gold in your astral spaces, that it's very healing, very balancing. Right, yeah, it's that symbolic animal language. It's wonderful, Pia. That's a very wonderful guide. You can just think about her and how she uplifts you to your heart space. It's really wonderful. Yeah, I recommend looking up the spiritual properties of gold. A lot of times when people are doing like past life regression practitioners are doing trauma healing in past lives, they'll like tell people to sprinkle gold in the hard places. You know, there's this whole thing about, I don't know if you guys know about in Japan, they have this practice where they fix broken pottery with gold to make it even more beautiful after it's broken. So there's some interesting symbolism there. You know, gold's a very powerful alchemical color, and that's why we value it so much in its physical form, I think, is because of what it represents to us. There's some ancient, deeper mystery there that's to be explored for sure, beyond just the rareness of it. It's a perfect electrical conductor, for one thing. It's interesting how that kind of aligns. So I'm just sitting here, steepling my hands because I'm enjoying the energy that you're all bringing to this space. This is so powerful. It's amazing how you're so connected to your guides and to those beings. Chanel, I really appreciate what you bring to these experiences because the vividness of those experiences is really important. And I really like how you've taken something that, you know, other people would have seen a different way and used it to empower yourself and also to empower us, because as we watch you develop in your process and we see how you use these abilities, we really trust ourselves more. And it's really a gift. And I really want to encourage you to really share that as much as you can, which you do. I like how you like to draw these things. It's like, here, my hands up. So we've got a bit more time here. I actually had this scheduled until 5 o'clock, which we don't all have to stay that long, but I wanted to offer a trance session. If anyone has any suggestions, let's take about 5 minutes to think about things that we'd like to collectively transcend. We'd like to collectively do. I'm going to bring us all into a collective astral space individually and then bring us all in. Sounds fun, doesn't it? I think Joe might have stepped away. Joe, are you with us? How are you feeling about a trance session, Joe? Awesome. This is going to be fun, you guys. All right. Let's just find a nice, relaxed, easy space. Just finding nice, comfortable place to relax completely. Just sinking into the comfort of your chair. Just relaxing. Just sinking in And some of you might appreciate this, that I'm about to say 3, 2, 1, dream, 3, 2, 1, dream, 3, 2, 1, dream, and breathe, and relax, envisioning a tiny point of light. Just watch it expand and watch it contract, allowing yourself to breathe as you watch the light expand, watch the light contract, watch the light expand, watch the light contract. Allow yourself to relax completely as you watch the light expand. Allow yourself to fully relax as you watch the light contract. Allow your feet to relax completely as you watch the light expand. Allow your knees to relax completely as you watch the light contract. Allow your hips to relax completely as you watch the light expand. Allow your stomach to relax completely as you watch the light contract. Allow your chest to relax completely as you watch the light expand. Allow your arms to relax completely as you watch the light contract. Allow your neck to relax completely as you watch the light expand. Allow your jaw to relax completely as you watch the light contract. And allow your eyes to relax completely as you watch the light expand. And allow your forehead to relax completely as you watch the light contract. Now allow your thoughts to relax completely as you watch the light expand, 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 filling your mind as you relax completely, taking some deep breath as you go down to your own safe space. To breathe, relax for a moment. And now I call each of you into my heart space. It's a tiny cottage, kind of cluttered, with a large library. The sun is streaming in through the window. There's a large crow perched on the desk, and I'm sitting there, looking happy that you're here. Astara, I call you in. Megan, I call you in. Joe, I call you in. Pia, I call you in. Chanel, I call you in. I bring you all in to my heart space and greet your higher self awarenesses. Let's take some nice breaths together, synchronizing our energy, synchronizing our heart space, connecting on a deep level, our higher self awarenesses are one. I offer you each tea or coffee, or perhaps a cocktail, as you prefer, to enjoy here in my heart space. Take your time to enjoy that while we all connect and synchronize our energy. Now I call in all guides, all light beings, all positive energy into this space to protect us, to nurture us, to nourish us. We are all star family here. Look around and see everyone in their light form, pure energy, pure beingness, pure love, pure light. And now, let's step out into the garden. There are trees and plants and flowers, bees and butterflies, birds chirping in the distance. And you see there is a massive Merkaba light ship shaped like a star, parked on the lawn with a ramp leading down the grass. Let's all get on board this light ship. There's a seat for each of you. Take a seat and feel your higher awareness activating as you connect with our shared light body, our shared light ship, integrating you, integrating us all, connecting our energy, connecting our love, fully present for one another now, as we use our collective energy to take us up into space. Look down at the beautiful green earth. See all of the light, all of the love, all of the energy connecting. See the grid of energy overlaying the earth, pulsing in blue. We now send our mutual energy into the grid to raise the vibration of all beings. And now we will travel somewhere distant, a distant place where there are two suns, a smaller sun orbiting a larger one, a scattering of small planets all around, asteroids, comets, an entirely new solar system. As we move closer down now, we see that there is a planet beneath. From this planet arises beautiful, mystical music. Seems hauntingly familiar to you. Vibrates in every cell. Let's land on this world. You see that there are fantastical buildings, trees, plants, strange things, and beings all around, of every conceivable shape and size, color, vibration. You may see beings who look like cats, beings who look like us with blue skin, beings who look like fish, beings who look like lizards, beings who just look like clouds of gas or sparkling golden energy. You may see tiny gray, you may see tall gray. All beings are here now, moving in the vibration of the music, connected, sharing in the mutual vibration. There are no perfect beings here. We are all just in it together, here to receive the vibration of the universe, this special event where we connect with our star family, where we bring them love and healing and understanding. Connect now with someone in this place, a star being who wishes to meet you, to bring you guidance, or perhaps to receive your guidance, or both. Feel that energy close to you. You may choose to make a long-term connection with this being, or you may just receive what they have to tell you now, or just send a message of love and receive their message of love. spend some time just allowing the energy of this hot and earthly music to fill your body, clearing yourself. You may wish now to take your own Merkaba off somewhere else to a different world. You can transport you there instantly just by wishing yourself there, just by thinking yourself there. You can take yourself anywhere in the universe, any dimension, anytime. That is your power. And as you explore wherever you are, make note of what you see, what you feel. You may see strange shapes, strange objects. You may receive information. You may receive new connections. Don't try to make sense of what you see. Don't try to make sense of what you receive. Just allow yourself to receive it, to remember it. Like any Akashic knowledge, it may not make sense right now, but it will in the future. Take some breath to receive what you receive, and then come back together to the world of music, where we all connect our energy hand in hand, each of us, to share what we've learned, share the love and wisdom from our many different backgrounds, perspectives, beliefs. Allow the uniqueness to add to this song, to the vibration. We are each unique, like a note on a scale. Each of us adds a different resonance, depth, and complexity to the vibration of the universe. Feel how you move in resonance with all beings in the universe. Feel it in your heart space, where we are all the same. We are all joined. We are all connected. And now, let's all get back on to that Merkaba light shift and return back to beautiful Mother Earth, to my heart space, that small cottage, Step out into the garden where we'll have another refreshing drink, communicating with one another, astrally connecting, enjoying our energy. We've met many times in many lives, all of us. We are all soul family. We are all star family. You may now see how we are all connected by energy filaments, cords of love. You may see how you are connected to all of the other beings you know or encounter. There is no obligation in these cords, only love, only light, only healing. I maintain you all at the highest vibration within my heart center. I bring you deepest healing. I bring you deepest love. I bring you balance and clarity of yourself. I bring you deepest joy. I bring you release from shame and fear and guilt. I bring you expansion. I bring you all of these intentions. And I now send you back to your own heart spaces to rest and reflect for 2 minutes on what you've learned today. And now, if you are feeling very relaxed, I would like you to wake up and I count to 10, feeling relaxed, at peace, and ready to have a wonderful day. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. And if you're still awake, check in with me and let me know what you thought of that experience. It's cool that you had Crow with you. Crow's very powerful. That's great, Chanel. I was really trying to bring us all up to the highest vibration I could, just very intentionally. I'm glad, Pia. I'm really loving that bird woman. Wonderful. So grateful to all of you for opening up that experience and opening up to each other. You know, this is really the power of this work, is in this collective energy. The more that we can raise our energy together, the more that we can focus on these positive things together, the more that we really strengthen each other. And this is really the point of the grid. You know, we create our own grid. By kind of joining our Merkabahs together, we can kind of be like, I'm going to make a nerd reference. If you remember Voltron from the 80s, you know, we all kind of join our energy together to be a single larger being in a way. It's very powerful. Field trip. Well, I told you guys I'd take you to an astral dance party. Oh, interesting. Those color codings are really interesting. It's interesting because I was opening up my heart space and that I was green. So we went on our field trip to the astral dance party on the alien planet. So much fun. I feel really great too, you guys. I'm really happy that you were able to receive me and the energy that I was. Oh, it took me a minute to get that reference. I remember that show now. About a generation later, or earlier, I should say. Well, you know, you can work with Miss Frizzle in your spaces. You know, you can work with anyone. I have all kinds of people in my spaces, so you know. Water beam. The color stuff is really interesting. I've been becoming more and more aware of how important the color frequencies are, which is something I've been resisting because I honestly colorblind. So I have kind of a little bit of resentment about colors in physical space, but I really am tapping more into the power of color and how important it is in these astral spaces. Wow, Joe, that's really powerful. That integration and those physical sensations are really important to key into. When I feel those physical sensations, it's a really important guide. That's a really important higher self messages. Anytime that you get any kind of physical sensation like that, like intuitive tingles and things like that. It's really what a lot of this work is about the integration process and also learning how to work with our different levels of awareness. Like we can have our higher self awareness, we can have our ego awareness. So it's really interesting to move back and forth between those levels of awareness and to feel them integrated. That's really what we're trying to do in our heart space, is to integrate those. Yeah, I tend to connect with blue quite a bit, honestly. I feel like that's sort of a color scheme that I try to use intentionally, honestly, because it is very healing, very communicative. Definitely. Yeah, I mean, focusing on the color patterns while doing chakra healing, the more that you can focus on the different aspects of something like chakras or whatever it would be, you know, there's a lot of different elements of chakras. We actually have a energy attunement, attuning the light body exercise that works with the chakras a bit. that we just put out a couple days ago. So working with the different color frequencies as they align within the light body is really powerful and really important. So I feel it's really interesting how we sort of associated with these different frequencies in the astral space. That's really cool. Yeah. Yeah, indigo, purple, yeah. It's okay. We go, we go where we go. My main intention was just to kind of calibrate us all to a heart frequency. So whatever happens, as long as you enjoy the experience and you feel the energy raising, and that's the important thing, you know, you don't have to see anything that I say. That's what I always tell you guys is, you know, make it your own experience. It's all about the vibration and the feeling and the frequency. And it's all about that love energy. And I really appreciate, again, all of you opening to that experience. Well, we're having a lot of fun. The other guys are missing out. I don't know if they'll quite get the same experience from listening to this. They might, though. It's true. They can time travel and join us. Absolutely. No, we should send them all some love right now. That's my love sending thing. I've really so enjoyed having all of you on board for this entire journey. It's been quite a roller coaster for all of us, honestly, and the Star and I have put everything in that we are into this process. And I know that you guys have too. You guys have really gone full force, and you know, I hope to work with you all in some way going forward, whatever way makes sense, because you know, there's only so many people in the world, quite honestly, that are open to this kind of work. And we really only intend it for people like you, for you, all of you, who are open and who are willing to dive in and to trust. And the heart openness that you've shown has really changed us. You know, you really have taught us a lot, like the Star is saying. You know, you've shown us who our tribe is. You guys, all of you, are our tribe, and we're so grateful. You know, I say that a lot because gratitude is so important to me. So grateful and so happy to have all of you within my astral space and to be able to serve you in the ways that I do. And I know that both the Star and I have just changed so much, even just over this last month. And we're looking forward to just whatever comes, whatever you guys want to do to engage us going forward. You know, we're always here, we're always open. It's not about an ending, it's about a new beginning. Yes, we're all very brilliant people. It's amazing the brilliance and power of the people that have connected. And seeing that application too. Yes, the Star, I like just seeing how it really does inform and improve your lives, hearing about how you use these tools, hearing about how it applies to you practically is important, because you know, we're not here just to teach you how to have happy thoughts. I mean, that's important, that's everything really, but we want to help you to have better lives in some way. And we know that there's nothing wrong with you now, but there's always things that we can improve in our lives. There's always something that we can move towards. And I think that if we are at a point where there's nothing to move towards, then we become bored. Nobody wants to be bored, even if you have a perfect life, whatever that means. We all need something new. That's the nature of our minds, to explore, to expand. If we stop expanding, even if everything's fine, we're probably dead. And that's even another activation onto something else. So, yes, this is just a beginning. This is just one activation in a long series of activations. Sustainability, yes. You know, we can learn these techniques, but we want to also be able to employ them, to sustain them. And that's really the point of why we try to get you to engage your own beliefs, your own belief systems. And I'll say that over and over and over again. But that's the ultimate goal. And if you tell anyone else about this course, if you tell them nothing else, let them know that it's about sustaining, it's about creating, yes, thriving mechanisms. Yes, thriving mechanisms. We want to have thriving mechanisms. We always have coping mechanisms, survival mechanisms, all these mechanisms. And this is really what this course is about: sustaining thriving mechanisms, engaging our own personal belief systems. And you've all done amazing jobs at this. Yeah, I like it too. I'm gonna start using that at some point for something. But it's just, I can't thank you guys enough, honestly. So we have more time. Is there anything else that any of you would like to share? Any kind of engagement that you'd like to do with anyone else? Any questions, any pointed questions you want to ask me or Astara? Even if you'd like a reading, I'm happy to do a reading for someone right now. If you're open to sharing the results of that reading.
Hey, can I say something real quick?
Of course.
I'm really interested in, it almost seems like contradictive in some ways to think about ancestors, but also consider, as in having this physical DNA, but also consider that we've had these other lives that maybe we were, something very different than we are now. So I just want to see what you think of related to that, because I totally nerded out the other day and got on ancestry.com for the first time and like traced back relatives to like Ireland, that I, just and all kinds of stuff to like the 1600s. And I'm like, that's really interesting, but like, are these people just part of my DNA, or are they really part of my soul connection? And I feel like, specifically, like, I feel really connected with some of my grandmothers. Like, I've lived with them before, but not necessarily under the condition of being, I guess the, American or, white women or, whatever. Like, we've lived in other dimensions or other, as other beings. So I just want to hear, what you guys have to say about that. Thanks.
Yeah, that's a great topic and something I can go on about for a long time. So I really appreciate you bringing that up. That was actually one of the very first things that we started to explore with this modality. And the understanding that we've come to, and of course, this is just kind of our received Akashic understanding, is that we act as attractors for souls of specific vibrations, right? Our DNA itself acts sort of like an antenna. Now, when I say that, I'm actually talking about the specific code that our DNA contains, right? So I want to make sure that I kind of repeat this concept because it can be kind of weird. So our DNA has a specific pattern in it, right? It's basically what it is. It's a pattern, right? It attracts a soul that has a specific frequency, almost like a marker, right? So what DNA does is it serves as sort of a channel or a receptor, right? A light receptor for specific souls. So when you have a group of souls who are in a soul family or a soul contract or a pod, whatever you want to call it, then they are attracted into incarnating into beings that have specific genetic frequencies, specific DNA configurations. And that's why we tend to come back as the same species. We tend to come back as humans. We don't have to. We could come back as, a deer or a wolf or a fish or a dolphin. But as long as there are humans, we will most likely come back as humans, because that is the DNA frequency that attracts those souls. And this is kind of, I mean, I can't prove any of this, of course, but this is what it seems like, and this is what I've received. Yes, families stick together, that simple. It's almost like that DNA is kind of like the name of that family, right? That's how you know where to go, is from that genetic frequency. So the beings who incarnate as our ancestors or our children or whatever it might be, they are in our soul group. So that's how soul groups stay together. Now, of course, you can have people that are in your soul group that aren't your genetic relatives, but we're all still human, right? So that is kind of our larger soul family, the human experience, and we have Gaia, and it kind of goes out. You know, the more similar our DNA, the more likely we are to have people that are similar to us incarnating. That's why you have very similar people in different families, personality wise. I mean, sure, genetics, right? There's a lot of genetic factors there. But the important thing is that this is how we bond between lifetimes. So I'm trying to think of a more concrete way to explain this from the way that we've experienced this. Imagine that your grandmother has a higher self and a lower self, like all of us. She has a physical incarnation that is genetically connected to you, and she has a higher self awareness. Now, when her lower self dies, when her body dies, that higher self can go anywhere. It can go off to another planet, it can go off to another dimension, it could come apart, it could merge with another soul. Really, we have a lot of choices. But when there is another being available to be born that has a similar genetic frequency, that being knows that it can reconnect with those beings that it loved by going back into like her own grandchild. And that happens. Astara actually had a specific past life memory of being reincarnated back into her own grandchild. So really, it's ultimately just about that DNA serving as a sort of receptacle. So the implication of that is that we are, in fact, our own ancestors in a lot of ways. Like, you could actually be the reincarnation of your own ancestor, but all the people around you in your family are also your ancestors and your descendants. It's not really like this linear relationship. All that ancestral connection does is provide a signpost, a marker for the beings in your soul group. So the other implication is that the ancestor that you're connecting with in astral space could also be someone who's incarnate as a family member in your own space currently. Their higher self could still be incarnate, even though you're communicating with them in this ancestral version, which gets confusing until you think about the idea that in fifth dimensional space, we're all outside of time. There's no time. So you can communicate with the higher self of someone who was incarnate as your grandmother, and that same soul could be also incarnate as your child. And I've actually run into some things like this. It was interesting. I was working with this client one time, and he kept making this ancestral connection with a grandmother. And whenever he would do this, like clockwork, his daughter would start crying in the next room. And he was resisting it. He wasn't going in there. And I was like, you need to go in there now, like physically get up and go in there and connect with her, because that is your connection to your ancestor. For whatever reason, you're trying to reach out and connect with your ancestor, your child is crying. And he told me a couple of days later that since he'd been acknowledging that connection, his daughter had been acting out and throwing fits much less. So it's interesting how these connections work. And of course, I can't prove any of this, and this may not even make sense to anyone, but that's the relationship that I've come to understand between our DNA and our past lives. The DNA, again, acts as a sort of attractor, receptor for souls of a specific vibration. And that's why it's always possible that we come back. It's not, personality is a funny thing. Personality is ego, right? So we only take so much of what we call personality between lives. So it's interesting, what you feel is true on the inside as far as preferences. I mean, think about what, a woman had to be like in those previous generations. Not so much open expression. We have a lot more open expression in our age now than we used to. So, what seems like external personality may not always be our eternal self. I feel like the higher self has a certain personality that is distinct, but often very different from our sort of ego personalities. So, Megan, I don't know if that addressed your question or not, or if that was just confusing or what. We haven't really written down a lot of these specific thoughts. I think we mentioned some of these things in one of the lessons, but these are very observed Akashic things that we're still sort of understanding and integrating more. But there's also a connection if you look deeply into some of the royal bloodlines of Europe and Sumeria and how those all connect. There's a lot of people that are related to the Sumerians, to the Anunnaki. This actually goes back into when we're talking about with aliens. So there's some interesting connections between how DNA attracts certain souls, certain energies, and the alien sort of theory that we are descended from aliens, which many people do believe. So there's something about how our DNA interacts with our higher selves, with our energies. And I encourage all of you, if you're interested in this, to do your own research and to look within and see what that means if you're interested in that, because there's something there. It goes even deeper than just bringing in our family members. It goes to our purpose and to our potential. So it's now 5 to 4, and I think we've had a lot of great time together, but I want to allow as much time as we want to hang out. That's true. That's a good point, Astara, right? Because the universe is much older than human life. I mean, human life has been around, depending on who you ask. I mean, maybe millions of years, maybe 500,000 years, but the universe is much older than that. There have been many consciousnesses that have existed across time and space. So I think that one reason that we experience human past lives most often is because that's within our realm of understanding. People that experience past lives and ancestral memories as other dimensional beings or beings on other planets, sometimes they have a level of distress because they're seeing something so different from what they're used to that it can actually kind of shut them down and they'll get kicked out of that specific memory or whatever it is because it's more than they can handle. So, there is sort of the frequency attunement thing. It's really important, interacting with these beings as equals, as connections. Yeah, I mean, we're all family, we're all star family, and we've all come from something that existed before. All right. Thank you, Megan. A wonderful day. So, again, thank you all so much. I really appreciate all of you for your energy, for your time. Um, Joe, Chanel, Pia, do any of you have anything that you'd like to share? Otherwise, I'll go ahead and wrap up this session. And as I said, we'll have at least a few more weeks. We'll be very engaged in the group. We'll be providing a few more lessons in there, just 3 more wrap-up lessons that will be light and fun and just about tapping into the heart center a bit more, about being vulnerable, about doing readings for others. So I'm open to work with you all a bit more. One thing about the, of course, Wikipedia, one thing about the mentorship program we're talking about is we'd like to offer anyone that wants to do that a 2-hour trance session that could be trancing, but also I could train anyone who's interested on the intricacies of this modality if they want to work with going into trance or anything like that. Any of you who would like to study more in depth some of these processes and tools, I wanted to offer that as well. If you wanted to get into that mentorship program, then you could see if anybody in the cohort wants to volunteer for you. I mean, anything that would help you to deepen into this modality. I'm really, hoping to get a chance to work with a couple of you a bit more in depth. And of course, we'll be offering a advanced class, possibly in November, December, but with the holidays, it may be after the first of the year. And most likely we will offer our next cohort after this one, after the first of the year, depending on interest and things like that. So I just want to let you guys know what's going on. Of course, sessions are always available if you want to connect and just connect and talk. So, yeah, Chanel, I would like to hear about that for a moment if you have time. Yes, absolutely. The more that you can engage your energy work in astral space, the more that you will be able to deliver your healings. I've really been working with people that are Reiki attuned more, and I always say bring in all your Reiki symbols into your astral space. And you do this anyway, but if you can envision yourself astrally working with those symbols while you're doing the healing, which you do anyway, but yeah, raising that vibration is important too. The heart is where we all connect. That's really where that sort of umbilical, that connection comes out. Yes, PS. So we'll be doing the advanced class. I don't know that we have enough interest right now to do that. So depending on the interest level after this cohort, we'll think about it. We'll have to see what the interest is, honestly. But most likely either November or after the first of the year in January. But, well, there were a few, but I mean, to be quite honest, for us to be able to do something like that, we'd have to have, really, I'd have to look at that number. As far as people, well, we'll talk about that offline a little bit. I don't know that we have actually 8 people that would be interested in that, but we definitely do want to do that. The advanced class is something that's very important to us, so I don't want to, leave that aside. So it's going to be really powerful when we do that. Basically, what we're thinking, Pia, is that we want to get this cohort through and offer the advanced class to the people that finish this one. So the only reason that I'm kind of hemming and hawing and going back and forth is because of the holidays. And a lot of people don't want to do things like this over the holidays. But if I have communication, it's like you're saying you're interested and other people are saying they're interested too, that they are available during that time, then we're happy to start a new cohort. Um, yeah, here in November. Yeah, definitely will. And of course, if you wanted to become part of this cohort and get the direct training and access to the new lectures and all that stuff, you're welcome to do that too. Yeah, I was confused about that a little bit, Joe. What was going on there? I'm like, who's Joseph? I'm like, okay. The toning stuff is really powerful, Chanel. Using your voice. I mean, there's really nothing quite as intense as toning yourself in. That's why I love using my voice and why I love to tone and chant myself in. We've also been working with people that do sound healing using bowls and things like that. But, we don't always have tools and things like that available to us. So the more that we can find tools that we can do with our own bodies, with our own voices, the more effective we'll be without having to have any external things. I mean, there's so many external things that can take us into trance, but just using our own voice and our breathing are really all we need. And if anything is taken away from this class, those abilities, really important. Yeah. Those are my two favorite things too, Pia. I love toning myself down and experiencing myself as an ancient Egyptian or something. I mean, there's just something so deep and powerful about that. Yeah, voice is so fun. I just love using my voice. It's so funny because I never liked my voice before, and now it's like everything to me. It's like what I do, and it's how I deepen myself in my own spiritual practice just by using my voice. And you don't have to have perfect voices. I don't have a perfect voice. I'm not a great singer or anything, but we all have this ability to express authentically, to express who we are, and to listen, to receive, and to feel our voices, the resonance in our bodies. And it's the energy that we all have. It's the vibration that connects us, and it's a gift. Not everyone has the ability to speak, right? Or even, enough strength in their voice to be able to express. So really finding that deep heart voice is what it's about. Yeah, if you received a higher self name, toning that or chanting that, it's really powerful, really powerful. It's true. It's very true. I mean, the science of mantras and spells and things like that, it's very well developed in the East. I mean, the Buddhists and the Hindus and the Taoists have been doing this for a very long time. And honestly, we're kind of catching up. But you can also study these things in Kabbalah about how different words and names and tones and keys and all are very important. But we don't even need to know all of these things if we just feel them in our bodies. We just feel them naturally in our bodies. Yeah, the notes and the syllables of each chakra, very easy to work with. There's also a certain power to vibrating these syllables in our astral space. So we have the ability to kind of subvocally say things. Like we subvocally often will say things that we're thinking that we don't want to say. It's kind of how we suppress things. They actually have technology now that can read your subvocal information, which is kind of like when you're saying something that you're not saying out loud because you're thinking it as a statement. Like if you're looking at someone and saying, man, I really want those shoes that person has or something, you're saying it, but you're not saying it out loud. But some part of you is actually expressing it physically in your jaw. So there's still a resonance that's happening. It's kind of creepy because they have devices that can actually read this information now. So it's very powerful to actually subvocally intone something. And even if you aren't even doing that, just sending those tones into your inner space is really powerful. So that's why we can do silent mantras. We do this a lot. If you do like Buddhist meditation, they often just tell you to do it silently. It doesn't have to actually be vocalized. So it's very powerful if we do that. But yeah, definitely. It's very powerful and very intense to have these silent chants. Because we may not always be in a place where we can chant out loud. It's definitely more fun to chant out loud sometimes. Like a chant or just something that you're thinking, like a thought or an idea? Yeah, that's really powerful. The more that we can engage the breath and the tones in our systems, the more we understand the kind of the continuum of energy between breath and sound. Breath and sound are everything. That's really what you learn in this course, I think. Yeah. You breathe life into being, breath is everything, Om, and then the silence. It's interesting because as you move up the chakra system, the highest chakra is like silent. Like you don't usually intone anything for that because, the silence of breath that occurs after the thought is really what gives definition and boundary to things. So, yeah, it's really powerful. I'm just thinking about how important it is for each of us to find our authentic voice. And once we do that, the depth of where it comes from in our energy systems, when it comes to that heart, when it comes into that diaphragm place, which is like the pump of the body, is really what kind of brings energy up and down right there, right between the solar plexus and the heart center, connecting higher self and lower self. It's so important. If you can just breathe yourself down into trance, honestly, you're doing everything. But I think that the power of tones, both inner and outer, helps us to kind of attenuate ourselves to specific frequencies, to connect to deeper parts of ourselves, to reach the deep cellular memory. Oh, yeah, joint toning. It's really powerful too. You can go face to face with someone, you can go back to back, you can really feel the sound waves and the vibrations and how people sound, how we sound really pinpoints in our bodies where there might be any blockages. It's very healing and it's a lot of fun. It's very light, it's very relaxed, but it can be really interesting. You can even just try it with somebody, with a friend, they'd be like, what are you doing right now? Just kind of like physical contact. You can just grab someone's hands and kind of like do some eye gazing. I don't know if you guys do these kind of things, but and then just share your sound, share your vocal experience. And it doesn't have to be like singing. It may be weird at first because people are self-conscious about our voices, especially like, oh, I can't sing, I can't do this, but yeah, you should, Joe, if you know anyone that would be open to that, just see. Or you could even do it over Skype. You will. Yeah, we did do that with some people. It was interesting. So yes, if you can even get people to try, even if they are skeptical, and even if afterwards they're like, okay, I don't know what that was supposed to do, you're still affecting them. You're still healing them. That actually brings to mind a point that I wanted to make about toning as well as doing like the vocal induction trances that we do in this course. Even if you're not doing the exercises, even if you're not following, even if you're not intentionally using the sound and all those things, they're still affecting you. They're still retraining you in certain ways, especially with the binaural tones that we use, that we underlay. You're receiving this information. It's coming to you. So even if it doesn't make sense, even if you were to do this for someone else and they're like, I didn't feel anything, it's still affecting them on a subtle level, which is why, yeah, sound healing group. Oh, nice. That's nice. That's really nice. You could, Chanel. Yeah. It's very, very powerful, especially if you're using other instruments like singing bowls and things like that. You can actually find those blockages that way. We have some friends that do sound healing. They've been doing it for years and they do training. And we're hoping that we can take advantage of some of that training at some point. But yeah, that's actually kind of how it's being used, is to find those blockages. You can actually hear on the body, if you put like a singing bowl or if you tone into someone's body, you can tell by what the sound is like how clear their cells are. It's really powerful. Yeah, tone healing is very powerful. Were they using bowls or were they using vocal effects? They've recorded tracks. How are they doing that? I'm just curious. Yeah, vocal toning is so much fun. So much fun. And you can do that with anything. That's why I like it so much. I mean, like we have this class we want to take with these crystal bowls and they're great, but the cheapest bowl is $1,300. So we're like, well, okay. But with this, with vocal toning, you can just go like this, or you just find the right resonance and right frequency. And, there's a science behind it. There's also an intuitive aspect to it. So the more that you can really connect to your intuitive understanding of how the tones affect you, of how they affect other people, then yeah, toning into tubes, they were doing that. Yeah. Yeah. So we've been working with more of these sound elements. Yeah. Sound is the purest, at least one of the purest forms of experience and communication. So the more that we experience our inner kind of soundscape, the more we are really attuned to the vibration of the universe, ultimately. So, yeah, a lot of times when people are just experiencing sounds and shapes and colors, they feel like, well, shouldn't I be visualizing something? And, these visual exercises, when they come and when they happen and when they're experienced in a visual way, they're great. But there's something really pure and simple and healing about just experiencing sound or just experiencing color, or just experiencing light. There's nothing wrong with those experiences. In fact, they're very healing, very deep, and in some ways more powerful than even, a visual journey, although those visual journeys can be powerful too. It's really just about where we are at a given time and using the different tools at our disposal. And especially for people that are musical, if you have a musical ability or if you just like music a lot, the more that you can tune into your own natural affinity for music, the more powerful those experiences will be. Just scrolling a bit here to make sure. I know, Chanel, there's been a lot of studies about how water and how different things react to sound. Cymatics is the study of how water works with sound. And you can find so much information out there. Really, there's theories about how some of these ancient structures were constructed using sound. I mean, sound is a physical reality. It affects physical space, and you can use it to affect anything. There are technologies using sound that have existed that are forgotten, I believe, in our current day and age that are only just now being rediscovered that really explain how our world even exists and how the structures that we've seen from the ancient world even exist. But yeah, I mean, sound is what actually defines the nature of physicality, like a star is saying. It's very true. So even just the very structure of our cells, you can see this if you watch some of these cymatics videos about how when they pass sound through water or oil, about how it organizes it. So sound is actually what organizes reality, organizes matter and structure. So it's really powerful. I really suggest looking at some of these cymatics videos. They're really eye-opening. It really understands how much the vibration of our words and even our thoughts really affects our existence. Plants, yes, the plants singing. Is that what you're talking about? I've seen those too. We were just watching some of those not too long ago about how you can even detect plants giving off vibration. You can turn it into music that's audible to the human ear. So just studying the nature of sound is so important, and the sounds that we can produce with our own bodies, I think, I feel that is very important to express and explore. Oh yes, if you play music for it, yeah, that's very true. It's very true as well. They do respond to words. But if you haven't seen that, Joe, where they actually hook up a machine that shows what they sound like, you should check that out. We'll send that to you. Just remind us afterwards. But yeah, they definitely do respond. Everything responds. All right, thanks, Pia. Remember, the group's still there. We still have materials, so keep in touch in the group. We'll still be active in there, and yeah, let us know. We'll let you know about the advanced class. We're still here. So much love, Pia. Thank you so much. So Chanel and Joe, I appreciate you guys sticking it out with us for a little bit. I want to leave some more space if there's anything you guys want to talk about or experience. We've got a bit more time reserved. You multitasking, Joe? Makes sense. I'm terrible at multitasking. I have to stay focused, or I get distracted very easily and end up scrolling on Facebook more often than not. So Chanel, how are you feeling? Is there anything that you wanted to express? Anything that you're thinking of? Anything that's come to you? Hmm. Yeah, don't forget to ground, 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 ground. And just connecting with the physical world. It was really my hope, and I feel like you've all done a really great job, that this practice would bring you more back into your physical experience with appreciation. We really like to remind each other that our physical experience is part of our spiritual experience, part of our astral experience. The more that we can sink into the beauty of that experience and to connect with the earth and just feel part of it, the more we'll be able to enjoy our astral experiences and our physical experiences and everything. I mean, I do some of that myself today. So those beautiful, simple experiences are important. But yeah, I can relate with what you're saying, Joe, as well, about money. I was actually writing about this on Friday, and we all have these fears. Astara and I have been coming up against some of those things ourselves, and really, money in a way is fear, right? There's a lot of fear energy in money for a lot of people. Not everyone is like this. But when we are afraid of not having money, we're afraid of not surviving. We're afraid that we may not have shelter or food. It's very similar to the fear that we would have if we were hunters on the savannah. And I'll sort of recap this visualization that I have about how we can use fear in our lives. So I had this vision of these three hunters, right? So we'll call them the old hunter, the middle-aged hunter, and the young hunter. right? So you have these three hunters on the savannah, and they're out there looking for food when suddenly this hungry tiger comes into view ahead, and they only have a few seconds to react. So their bodies will respond with fear, right? And each of them responds, reacts to this fear in a different way. So you have the young hunter who basically freaks out, starts flailing his arms and running around in a circle because he's not even sure what direction to go in, because he's just basically so terrified. He knows he can't outrun the tiger, so he figures he's doomed. And he's just sitting there running around in circles because he's afraid. And you have the middle-aged hunter who's been here a few times. So he receives his fear, he goes off and he hides, which is a smart thing to do. But when the tiger gets close, he becomes afraid again and he runs off. He runs to a different hiding space, hoping that the tiger won't catch him. So he, has learned how to kind of suppress his fear long enough to get to a hiding space. But when the danger gets closer, the fear is still there. He doesn't know what to do with it from that point. So he just goes to a different hiding space. Chances are the tiger will catch him or at least see him. So he's gambling on the possibility that he'll be able to reach the next hiding space before it gets him. And you have the old hunter. The old hunter responds to his fear by taking himself to a hiding space and then observing the tiger carefully. He observes and he watches the tiger's movements. He relaxes himself, receiving the fear with gratitude because it's keeping him alive. It's enhancing his senses and his perception. He's not going to move until he knows through his observation of the tiger's movements that it's too close. And at that point, he's so relaxed and so aware of the tiger's movements, he can probably strike and kill that tiger because he's been observing it. So this is kind of a masculine violence sort of analogy for understanding how fear works, but money works very much in the same way, is what I've been coming to realize. Money is a representation of fear of survival in our lives. We need more of it, we don't have enough of it. How we respond to that fear is going to very much determine how much we can receive that abundance, because we need to be able to relax and receive abundance. The more that we can relax, the more that we'll be able to observe the thing that we're afraid of and take the opportunities that come to us instead of receiving them just as fear. Because we're very much afraid of fear in our society, I think. We are afraid of the feeling of being afraid. So the more that we can receive the message of our fear, and I talk about this a lot in any session that we do, that fear is a messenger, fear is our ally. It's telling us that we need something. It's telling us that we need to move or hide or run or whatever it is, or that we need to fight, whatever it is we need to do. So this perspective of money as fear may not always be productive, but really we need to understand what has been invested into money, especially in our culture. A lot of the fear energy, the negative energy, the destructive energy has been funneled into money, right? A lot of the money that we have in this country was created with that energy, quite honestly. And it's been used to make us afraid. You don't have enough money. Are you going to pay this bill? Are you going to do this? Are you going to do that? So yes, there is a role of powerlessness. All the hunters have the same level of power. Ultimately, they can be eaten by the tiger. You can run out of money. You can lose your job. Yes, it's true. But when we relax, when we receive that fear, when we know that threat of losing our job is something that is within our power to some extent. There may be circumstances where it's not. Maybe the job is gone. Maybe it's not the right job for us. Maybe we have to move. There's all kinds of things. Maybe we get sick. It could be any number of things that are outside of our power. But we have a lot of things that we do have power over. So this actually kind of plays to what you're talking about, Chanel, as far as kind of being in a negative work environment. There may be times in life where that's where we need to be. It's not necessarily where we should be. That may be an indication that we need to find something else. Obviously, we want to surround ourselves with the best possible circumstances. Even the old hunter, the smart hunter, doesn't want to be out there with the tiger, but the tiger's there. He had to go out and hunt for his food, like everyone else. So the risk of that tiger being there is present. So when we are surrounded by those negative energies, we have a choice, right? We can extract ourselves from that situation. That's ideal, but that's not always within our immediate power. We could make long-term goals and plans to get ourselves out of that situation. But for the short term, that's where we are in that moment. Any given moment, that's where we are. That's where our power is. That's where our presence is. So that's when building these astral boundaries, this resilience is important. So this entire point that comes back, yes, inner calibration, poised to take advantage of the portals as they present, yes. So when we relax, when we allow ourselves to be fully present with ourselves, then we're so able to strike, so to speak, at any given moment because we've been conserving our energy. I say this sometimes that an animal at rest is much more effective than an animal on the prowl because it's been conserving its energy, right? The more that we can relax and conserve our energy and not invest our energy in these negative people that are around us. So this is actually really important. And I think that a lot of us deal with this in our workspaces with people that are kind of vampiric, quite honestly. And we can't get away from them because we had to show up for work, right? And they're always complaining. They're always dragging us down. They're always talking about things that are just not constructive. And yeah, Astara can talk about all of this. There's all kinds of dynamics there that, we have to deal with, and it takes away our energy, takes away our attention, right? What is energy, right? Time. It takes away our time. It takes away what we're thinking about. Instead of thinking about ourselves and our goals, I might be going to work every day and thinking, I'm going to go to school and do something else with my life. But if the people at work are directing our energy towards other things, then it's going to be hard to even think about those things. So that's really why we do a lot of these like safe space exercises, why we talk about boundaries, all of these things. It's great when we're meditating or doing trance work, but really these are the places, our work lives, our personal lives, where we need to establish these things, And that's the thing, like the job itself is the tiger, right? Like we have to kind of just watch the job. I've had a lot of jobs in my life, and I've been able to kind of really strategically move myself where I need to be by observing how the social dynamics in those jobs work. All that matters at any job in any organization, any human organization, is the social and political dynamics between people. Whatever anyone says, the most effective thing that you can do is to observe how people interact. And that's the essence of politics, and just observing and honestly involving yourself strategically. Like you only want to involve yourself strategically in those places. If you emotionally involve yourself too much in those workplaces, that's when people tend to have issues. Right. this is a very good point, because if we're in a vibration where we don't really align, where it's dragging us down, we know that we want to move on. We know that we want to move on from that. We want something better. We want something that's more in alignment with us, because what I've really found, this is a very basic fundamental truth, you know, a job's a job for most of us, right? And we may want to move on to do our own thing, but what really matters in most workplaces where you're working for someone else is who you're working with, right? Like anything else, the vibration of the people you're working with. What are you learning from that job? What are you taking away from it? How is it informing you? You know, we learn something from all of our jobs, even if it's just how people interact, even if it's just how we don't want to be. And there's a lot of wisdom to be gathered just by that observation. So we all have to go face that tiger in order to find our food. And that tiger could be anything. It could be a boss, a coworker, it could be the job itself. The more we observe and become aware of that without reacting, the more empowered we become. That's the key to empowerment. So we talk about empowerment being relaxation, empowerment being finding peace, even when we are feeling fear, even if we are in a difficult situation that we don't want to be in. And the more that we capture that power, the more that vibration resonates, the more it seems to come out of us, and the opportunities to be what we want to be come into our experience, simply by making that choice to not allow ourselves to be dragged down. And it can be difficult, because it's like walking into an ocean and saying we don't want to get wet, right? I mean, it's hard, but you know, you can wear a wetsuit. Like, you could walk into an ocean and not get a drop of your skin wet if you wanted to, because you're a human being with a human mind with access to all the tools at your disposal. So it can be done. And the more you do that, the more that you show the world who and what you are, those opportunities to do whatever it is you want to do will align. And they may not always look like what you would expect. So it's really best, I think, to keep it open, to keep everything open, keep opportunities open, and to start thinking about, what does my ideal life look like? What does my ideal job look like? What does my ideal home look like? You know, all these things. And you can get specific and get general, and you know, don't necessarily expect things to shape up exactly that way. You know, those expectations aren't necessarily what we want, but yeah, that's good too. You know, I mean, there's things that you're learning now in your job that will help you, and you may not even expect that. You know, mostly it's people skills. Most jobs are about interpersonal skills. So the more that you develop those, what they call soft skills, I'm kind of going back to my old consulting life now, but the more that we develop those soft skills, the more effective we'll be in any opportunity. I mean, most people that are in any job are there because they have good soft skills. They're there for any long period of time. And you can get by on those skills more than you can get by on technical skills sometimes. I mean, I used to spend most of my time just on Facebook, just doing my own thing, doing my own projects. Because when I was called upon to do my IT work, I was present and I was capable, and I was able to communicate with people. I was able to receive their needs and to help them. So it was more about my people skills, because I was never like the greatest or the smartest or the most effective tech, but I always had good people skills. I always had the ability to be present when I was asked to be present, and to receive people and to listen to people, even if I didn't want to, you know. And that's kind of like, again, being the smart hunter, being the old hunter who is just observing and acting when needed, instead of frantically just running around trying to be productive, you know. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't, you know, be productive in your job, but, you know, there's balance. There's balance. You can do what you need to do in life, and you can sell your time and energy in ways that are more uplifting if you want to. It's all about choice. We have a lot more choice than we give ourselves credit for. So yeah, there's levels of power and levels of disempowerment. And we have to find the subtle niches where we can take back our power. Because we've been bred, quite honestly, we've been bred into a slave economy. We've been taught that we need to slave away for someone else in order to have abundance. This is very well conditioned in us. In fact, all of our consumer culture, everything is really designed around that. So the more that we can take back our power in those little nooks and crannies, the more effective we'll become, and the more we'll begin to manifest the things that we need. So I won't pretend that I have all of these mysteries cracked or solved, but I do know that things are not so black and white as we've been taught. Everything's not so simple as, do I have a job, or am I unemployed, or am I starving? The more that we begin to receive our purpose, the more that we begin to see who we are. It's amazing the types of abundance that we'll receive, because people and the universe want us to thrive. They want to see us glowing. They want to see us creating things that people want. You know, this is what a star and I do. People want what we're creating, what we're channeling, what we bring through. And we're doing it with authenticity. We're doing it with our raw, full selves. So if people want what we have, there's no reason that we shouldn't be compensated for it. I think that also with people that are doing spiritual work, there's a lot of resentment about money, a lot of fear about asking for money for doing energy work or healing of any kind. And, you know, we run into people all the time that are like, why are you charging for this? And we tell them, well, you know, we put all of our time and energy into this. And we ask them, well, why are you charging for what you do? And they're like, well, you know, I work. You know, I'm asking, like, you know, you'll work at, say, a restaurant and charge people $50 for a meal. And, you know, that's probably a pleasant experience. But, you know, if I'm charging somebody $50 for a transformative healing session, then, you know, I mean, you can evaluate the differences between those two things yourself. But really, it's about helping people understand the value that you have and helping yourself understand your value, seeing your own value. And I think that's really important. Thanks, Joe. I appreciate that. And we've been told we should charge more. And, you know, a lot of us, we want people to have access to this stuff. But ultimately, you should see your own value, recognize your own value. And the more that you do that, the more that other people will have to see you for your own value, and just advocating for yourself, saying, you know, this is what I know I'm worth. Like, as an IT person, like, I always told myself I'm worth $120 an hour for my IT consulting services. And I am. And if I went back into that service, I would do that. And I would not compromise that, because people perceive you at the value that you're at, right? And I think it's true. I think there are a lot of people who charge for things that they're not really doing. I mean, that's probably what gives a lot of it a bad name. You know, a lot of people are saying, you know, I'm going to, you know, pray for you and all that, you know, spiritual healing and all that. Ultimately, it can be hard, especially as someone that provides an intangible service. But these services are important. And that's why I really do kind of encourage people to do engaged practices, to really communicate and really connect at a deep level. You know, I've had people say, you know, I'm sending you something. I mean, if somebody wanted to just give me food, you know, you can send me a chicken. I'm happy, you know, to eat a chicken. You know, I'm okay with that. You know, it's just kind of the reality of the situation that we're in. Yeah, I mean, crystals are fine too. Sorry, loves for crystals. So I think it's really important to understand that we all have value. And there's also something about charging other people that shows them value, because when you invest in something, then you're investing in yourself. When you invest in something, you're perceiving value. You know, if we were to give away this course, I'm sure we'd have 100 people signing up, and most of them would probably never ever do any of the work because it's just another free thing they signed up for. When people invest time and money in themselves, and they invest in the work because they've put money into it, they put time into it, put energy into it. So that perception of value works both ways. So by not charging people, or by not charging enough, then we're not really giving people value. I found that when I didn't charge for the higher self check-ins, I'd have people that didn't show up for sessions, that didn't really know what it was about, they didn't really care. And now, I just charge $33 for these sessions, but that's enough money that people take it seriously, but not enough money that it's a big deal for most people. And people take it more seriously just because they are investing a certain amount of money in it. And I've been able to see that very distinctly and very markedly. So I think it's important to understand that we are receiving value and also providing value. Providing value it's really what it's about. Knowing your value, being able to state your value, and being able to express your value. Like, I know I am worth this. I know that this is what I'm worth. And if people can't understand that, then, there's something I want to be able to give people. If people are coming to me and saying that, I really want what you have, but, the money's not there, then I try my best to find ways to work with them. And we give readings away all the time for people and things like that, especially if they come, with that honesty and that authenticity. I mean, it's not unusual for us to just do those things for no cost. But when people come with that kind of entitlement complex where it's like, well, you should just give me this for free, those are people that we usually honestly don't respond to, because it's insulting. It's basically, telling us that we have no value, honestly, or they don't perceive our value. And that kind of energy is not something that we choose to engage. So just something you guys might want to think about if you start doing this kind of practice on your own. Chanel, I know you're going to be doing healing. I think it is fair to charge for what you do, especially you put your energy into it, you put your time into it, you put your intentionality into it. It's really a value that you're offering. So the more that you perceive your own value, the more others will perceive your own value as well. And yeah, I mean, self-alignment, it's really what it's all about. You have to see your own value before anyone else will, for sure. Yeah, I mean, if they're charging, then it's like, well, you can pay me to debunk me if you want to. That'd be interesting. I've had skeptics come to me for tarot readings and things like that, and then they're like, well, how do you know that stuff? But I try not to do too much prediction with those. With my Akashic readings, I do interesting predictions, but well, if they agreed to pay for the reading and they're being insulting, I don't know if they should get a refund, honestly. It's my opinion. So I think we should wrap things up unless anyone has anything they are being really called to share. Joe and Chanel, I appreciate you very much. If you want to talk about being in this mentorship role for the class, I think that, Joe, I think we're meeting about that a little bit later, about how we can do that. And Chanel, if you're interested in doing that too, let me know. But also, of course, the material will be provided in the group, which will be there indefinitely, as I said. So we'll all be in touch. We'll all be absolutely present. Sure, Joe, if you wanted to express something else. Oh, okay. Well, we're going to meet a little bit later, I think, offline here, Joe, so we can talk about what's going on. Well, Chanel, I appreciate you so much. Joe, so much love and appreciation. So, again, be well, be in touch. We'll all connect again soon. All right. Thank you.